In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to easily create this cinematic look. To begin, we're going to set up our project space to how we like. So first, you're going to go down to Settings, go to Color Management, and change the color science to DaVinci YRGB, Timeline color space to DaVinci Wide Gamut / Intermediate, and the output color space is going to depend on your computer. If you're on a Mac, you'll put Rec 709-A, and if you're on a PC, you will do Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to leave it at Rec 709-A. Again, if you're on a Mac, come up to DaVinci Resolve, go to Preferences, and under General, check this Use Mac Display Color Profiles for Viewers. To begin our color grade, we're going to transform our original video into the DaVinci Wide Gamut color space, which will give us a little bit more control with the colors and the lighting. So to start out, I'm going to come up to Effects and add a color space transform to the beginning and end of my node tree. So I'm actually going to start with the CST out, the color space transform out, and change the input color space to DaVinci Wide Gamut and the input gamma to DaVinci Intermediate. Now the output color space I'm going to change to Rec 709, and the output gamma is going to depend on your computer. So if you are using a Mac, it'll be Rec 709A, and if you're using a PC, it'll be Gamma 2.4. Because I'm on a Mac, I'm going to do Rec 709A. It's already looking good, but we actually need to do some things in the beginning. So go to CST in and change the input color space to match the log profile of your camera. And if you're not doing log, you can actually start with Rec 709. This video shot with Sony S-Gamut 3.cine, and its input gamma was Sony S-Log 3. And the output color space, whether or not you're shooting with log, is going to be DaVinci Wide Gamut, and the output gamma is going to be DaVinci Intermediate. Now, if you do not shoot in log, I would just go here to your input color space and change it to Rec 709, input gamma, Rec 709. Now that I'm in the right color space, I'm going to start color correcting the video. So to do that, I'm first going to make sure I have my waveform up in the scope section. So you just come down here and click waveform. Now to start, I'm going to come over to these primaries color wheels. I'm going to be focusing on the lift, gamma, and gain, and these all do different things. So the gain, as you can see over in the scopes, kind of controls the upper part of the waveform. So the really bright parts, I can show those extremes right here. And then the lift controls the shadows, the black points, and the gamma controls the middle range of these scopes. So I'll be moving that up and down. You can see how that affects that. So I'll play with these to get an image that I like. I usually start with gain to get the right brightness in the highlights, but I don't want to go above this line because that will be clipped, meaning it won't actually show up in the final product. So I want to stay pretty well below that line. Okay, that looks pretty good. Then I usually go over to the lift and play with that. I don't want it to be too dark. I also don't want it to be too light. That looks pretty good right there. And on this one, I don't want to go below 0 because those will clip the black parts. Then I will go over to gamma and play with that. Now that looks pretty good. It's a pretty evenly balanced image. Now I'll go over to curves to further refine this. So I want to bring down the brightest part of my image so it's a little bit softer. And then I'm going to bring up the highlights, which is a little bit, not to the very top, but more of the upper middle range, and bring those up a bit. What I'm trying to do is take full advantage of the colors and the light captured in the camera. So I'm going to come down to this part, bring up the black slightly so we get a little bit more of this cuff, and then bring this down. And this creates sort of an S shape. This is called an S curve. So now that I have that done, I'm going to come over to white balance and I'm going to adjust the temperature and tint. There's a way to select your image. For example, if I select this cuff, it will automatically adjust these numbers for me and make things pure white. But what I usually like to do is play with the extremes and find what looks best to my eye. So I'm going to play with that a little bit. And for me, that looks good right about -10. And then for tint, that looks good for me around 4.5. So now that our video is corrected, we're going to go on to our color grade. There's not a specific way that you should do this. If you're just starting out, I would honestly get inspiration from places like Pinterest or shot deck. But for this video, I specifically know I want to cool things down. So I will start by coming over to the lift and moving this dot to be a little bit cooler. But just for the sake of this video, you can see what happens if I move around. You could also push it towards the reds. That also gives it a cool effect. But I'm going to bring it down and cool it down a bit. That looks good. Now I'll come over to the gamma, bring that down a little bit too. I don't want to bring down the gain because I want to keep those highlights a little bit warmer. So I could see if I want to push that and warm up the highlights, but I think I'm going to recover those in a different way later. So next what I'll do is I'll go over to these log wheels and do something similar. So I'll push that down. Now this looks really intense right now, so I might make some adjustments later, but let's go over to the color adjustment. And what we'll do is come over to this part, the color slice. And this is where we can edit individual colors. I'll show you my process with this as well. So a way you can see what colors are red, skin, or yellow, you can select this and it will create a mask to show. So the reds are right here on these lines, and then this part right here, the skin. Might have to adjust that because it's not really getting the skin very well. The yellows, greens, etc. And then what I'll do is I'll go into changing the hue of each of these colors. Actually, I'm going to go back to the color grade and increase the warmth of the gain so that way we get some of that skin back. Okay, go back to color adjustment, see where the skin is. Okay, so we are actually capturing the skin now, so that's good. Because the hands are the main character of this shot, I actually want to de-emphasize the reds here. So I'm going to decrease the saturation of those a little bit and then maybe darken them slightly as well. Perfect, a little before and after. Nice. And now I'm going to focus on the skin. And the way to make sure you're getting the right colors for your skin is you can come over to waveform and switch it to a vector scope. And then come over here and check this to show the skin tone indicator. That'll make sure we're getting the right skin tone color. So back over here, I'm going to highlight the skin color. I should push the hue a little bit more towards the red so it's on that line. Let's play with that. Okay, looks like skin is on the right line. So now I'm going to play with the saturation. I'm going to boost the saturation slightly just so it stands out a little bit more. And then I'm going to boost the brightness of that as well. Check the cyans. I'm going to push these more towards blue than green. Decrease the saturation slightly. Increase the lightness. Here's a before and after. Not a ton of change, but I'm liking our image better. Again, a lot of this comes from how you want your image to look creatively. So now we'll go on to curves. And for this one, I'm just going to be playing with the shadows and the highlights to create the contrast that I want. So I'm going to boost the highlights a little bit to make those hands stand out. And then let's see the shadows. I'm going to keep the shadows here. Here's before and after. I like that a little bit more. Now that we have the initial correction and color grade, I'm going to do the more creative part of this process, which is going to include adding a mask, glow, and a film look. So for masking, this is going to involve a lot of creative thinking. So just looking at my image, I can see which things stand out. Obviously, we want the hands to stand out. We want these keys to not stand out as much as the hands. I'm noticing there's a little bit of haze back here. So I might create some adjustments to bring that haze out a little bit and maybe brighten up this top leading down to the hands and then darkening the bottom of the image, kind of creating a gradient throughout with the hands standing out in the middle. So to start, I'm going to create that gradient by clicking down here and dragging this up. What this arrow is basically doing is feathering out our gradient. So I'll just bring this down and I'll come over here to gain. I might just bring that up a little bit. And one thing I like to do is add a little bit of a glow. So I'll come over to glow, decrease the threshold and increase the spread, and then decrease the gain and then play with that a little bit. Okay, I might decrease the gain back to the original and just focus on the glow. Okay, bring it down, not all the way down. Okay. And I'll just play with the feathering of that. Okay, that looks good. A little before and after. And then when I'm adding masks, what I'll do is I will select it and then add a parallel node so that all these masks are combined. On this next mask, I will darken the bottom of the image, and I'll just rotate this and then bring the gain down of that. Let's see, before and after of these masks. Okay, I'll create another mask and bring these hands out a little bit more. Then I'll just add a circular mask, expand, and then playing with this, we'll just feather it. I'll come over here and increase the gain slightly. Now let's look at how all these masks look before, after. Now that really brings out the natural effects of the image and really helps those hands stand out a bit more. Next, what I'll do is add a little bit of a glow. This is very subtle, but I think it really helps soften the image. I'll decrease the shine threshold a little bit, increase the spread, and then I'll just bring this all the way down and then slightly back up. It's a very subtle effect, but it just kind of softens the bright parts of the image. Next, I'm going to create a film look. So this will kind of bring our colors together at the end. So go to Film Look Creator and add that. And what I'll do is I'll usually start with default 35. That's my favorite. And then I'll change the core look to Alaska. Play with these settings and come up with what you like the best. But okay, and I like to bring the film look blend pretty far down. I don't like it to be too intense. And then I'll bring the effects blend down a little bit. And then the color blend down. I just want this to be pretty subtle before and after. And finally, before we finish this color grade, I'm going to come back to that first node and soften it up a bit. So I'll do that by coming over here, decreasing the detail slightly. You can push it to the extreme and really see what that's doing. I don't want it to do too much, so I'm just going to decrease it by -0.5. And then come over to HDR. And I want to soften the darker parts of the image slightly. So I'll do that by coming over to Shadow and increasing the exposure. And then I want to soften the brightest parts a little bit. So now looking at our image overall, here's the before and the after of our color grade. But that's the process for creating a color grade just like this. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below.